Chapter 1. The Breach. The building did not exist, not on public maps, not in zoning records, not in the databases Jack Harrison had once been cleared to access. From the outside, it was just another industrial structure pressed against the edge of the city. Concrete walls, minimal windows, a footprint designed to avoid curiosity rather than invite it. But Jack knew better. He lay prone behind a low concrete barrier 50 yards from the perimeter fence, rain soaking through the elbows of his tactical jacket. Night pressed down heavy and cold, the kind of darkness that made depth perception unreliable and sound feel closer than it should. His breathing was slow, deliberate, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The habit was older than memory. Above him, floodlights swept the perimeter in patient arcs, white beams slicing through mist and rain. Each pass was predictable, mechanical, designed to make people careless. Jack watched 3 full rotations before he moved. To his left, the rest of the team waited in silence. 5 shapes pressed into shadow, matte black gear absorbing the light. They were good, hand-picked. The kind of operators you trusted not because you liked them, but because they had proven, again and again, that they would still function when things broke. Jack lifted his wrist slightly and checked the display built into his forearm guard. 4 minutes to breach. He let his gaze drift, not outward but inward, reviewing the mission parameters for the 100th time. Infiltrate the facility, secure the target room, extract data, exfiltrate through the south access point. Clean, surgical, no civilian presence, no unnecessary force. Jack had run operations like this his entire adult life. Different locations, different enemy profiles, same fundamental rhythm. The kind of work that didn't leave room for doubt because doubt slowed reaction time. Still, something felt off. He pushed the thought away. Unease before a mission wasn't new. It was just the body reminding the mind that survival wasn't guaranteed. Jack had learned long ago not to mistake instinct for superstition. He shifted slightly, feeling the reassuring weight of his primary weapon across his chest. A suppressed Mk18-style carbine, tuned for close-quarters engagement. Short barrel, collapsible stock. Optics zeroed personally by Jack himself. He trusted the weapon the way some people trusted prayer. He performed the checks by touch alone. Magazine seated, round-chambered, selector on safe. Across his vest, 2 spare magazines, a compact med kit, flex restraints, and a single flashbang clipped high and tight. Secondary weapon, a suppressed 9mm pistol, sat at his thigh, knife in his boot. Tools for every kind of conversation. Jack raised his head slightly and glanced back at the team. They were ready. One of them, Mason, met his eyes and gave a brief nod. Mason had been with him on 3 prior operations. Reliable, calm, married, if Jack remembered correctly, a detail that surfaced now for no logical reason. Jack looked away. Personal details were dangerous before a mission. He tapped his comm twice. Final check, he murmured. No chatter unless necessary. Acknowledgements clicked back, soft and disciplined. Jack watched the floodlights sweep again. Again. Then he raised his fist. The signal rippled through the team, silent and immediate. Bodies shifted. Weapons came up. 5 shadows peeled away from cover and moved as one. They crossed the open ground in controlled bursts, timing each movement to the light's predictable arc. Jack moved at the front, posture low, weight balanced, senses tuned razor sharp. Rain slicked the concrete under his boots, but his footing never faltered. The perimeter fence loomed ahead, tall, reinforced, humming faintly with dormant power. Jack knelt, pulled a compact cutter from his pouch and worked quickly. The metal parted with a muted hiss. He slipped through, then turned, covering as the others followed. Inside the fence line, the air felt different. Stagnant, filtered, too quiet. Jack rose and scanned the building's exterior. No visible guards, no patrols crossing his line of sight. Cameras, yes, but their blind spots had been mapped, logged, exploited. Too easy. He keyed his mic. Approach phase. Stack on me. They moved along the wall, staying tight to the structure. The side entrance came into view. A reinforced steel door, keypad dark, surface scuffed with age. Jack crouched beside it. He pulled a small device from his kit and pressed it against the keypad. The screen flickered once, then went blank. Unlocked. Jack paused. Not long, just long enough to acknowledge the anomaly. He pushed the door open. The smell hit him immediately. Cold air recycled endlessly through unseen vents, tinged with industrial cleaner and something faintly metallic beneath it. Blood, his mind supplied. Not fresh. They flowed inside. The door shut behind them with a soft, final click that echoed louder in Jack's head than it should have. The hallway beyond was narrow, walls painted institutional gray. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering intermittently as if struggling to stay awake. Doors lined both sides, all closed, all identical. Jack raised his rifle. This was where things usually went quiet. He advanced, boots silent on polished tile. Every sense stretched forward, listening for breath, for movement, for the subtle inconsistencies that separated safe from fatal. He reached the first intersection and raised 2 fingers. The team split smoothly, arcs of fire covering angles without overlap. Clear left, Jack whispered. Mason echoed back, barely audible. Clear. Jack shifted right. The facility felt hollow, too empty for its purpose. No hum of activity. No distant voices, no movement beyond their own. His pulse ticked higher. Focus. He took another step. That's when the lights flickered hard. Once. Twice. Then, the first gunshot cracked through the corridor. The first gunshot snapped the air apart, not distant, not muffled. Close. Jack's body reacted before his thoughts could catch up. He dropped low, rifle snapping toward the source as the corridor ahead erupted in light and sound. Automatic fire chewed into the walls, concrete exploding outward in sharp, stinging bursts. "Contact front!" Jack shouted. "Move! Move!" The hallway became chaos in seconds. Bullets screamed past, ricocheting with vicious metallic shrieks. The fluorescent lights flickered violently now, strobing the scene into fractured images. Mason diving for cover, another operative slamming into a doorway, dust and smoke swallowing the air. Jack leaned out and returned fire, controlled bursts, suppressor coughing in rapid rhythm. He saw shapes at the far end of the hall. Dark figures, disciplined, advancing in coordinated movement. Not panicked, not surprised. This wasn't random resistance. This was a setup. "Mason, status!" Jack barked into comms. A sharp cry cut through the gunfire. Jack's stomach dropped. He risked a glance to his left. Mason lay on his side near the wall, one hand clutching his neck where blood poured between his fingers. His rifle lay just out of reach, useless. Jack felt the moment stretch, heavy and unreal. Then training slammed back into place. "Covering!" Jack shouted. He surged forward under fire, bullets snapping so close he felt heat against his cheek. He slid beside Mason, dragging him back behind a support column. Mason's eyes were wide, unfocused. His mouth worked soundlessly. "Stay with me," Jack said, pressing hard against the wound. "Stay with me." Mason tried to speak. Blood bubbled at his lips instead. Jack shook his head violently. "No, no, don't." A fresh wave of gunfire slammed into their position. The column chipped and cracked, fragments raining down. Jack knew then. There was no medevac coming, no extraction window, no backup. This wasn't a mission gone wrong. This was an execution. "Mason's down," someone yelled over comms. "We're pinned." Jack swallowed hard and forced himself to move. "I need suppressive fire on the far end," he shouted. "Now!" 2 rifles answered immediately, the corridor filling with overlapping bursts. Jack dragged Mason back another foot, but the man's grip slackened. Mason's eyes met his one last time. Then they went empty. Jack froze. Just for a fraction of a second. Long enough for something inside him to crack. "Jack!" another operative screamed. Jack snapped back into motion, teeth clenched so hard his jaw screamed. He grabbed Mason's rifle, slung it over his shoulder without thinking, and moved. The hallway was a kill box now. Enemies poured in from intersecting corridors, flanking, advancing, coordinated with ruthless precision. Jack fired until the bolt locked back, slammed a new magazine home, and kept moving. Another teammate went down near a doorway, a round punching clean through the thigh. He screamed as he collapsed, dragging himself toward cover. Jack ducked beside him. "Can you move?" The man shook his head frantically. I can't feel my leg." Jack cursed under his breath. He knew the answer before he asked. "We're leaving," Jack said. The man's eyes widened. "What?" "We're leaving," Jack repeated, voice iron. "Everyone who can move, fall back." A flashbang detonated somewhere down the corridor, briefly drowning the gunfire in a concussive thunderclap. Jack used the moment, firing into the stunned shapes ahead. "Stairs," he shouted. "Move to the stairs." They broke. Jack covered the retreat, backing down the hall, firing in disciplined bursts while the survivors staggered past him. Blood slicked the floor, boots slipping, bodies colliding. Someone screamed behind him, cut short mid-sound. Jack didn't look back. He couldn't. The stairwell door loomed ahead. Jack slammed into it shoulder first and spilled inside, dragging the wounded man with him. The door crashed shut behind them, as bullets punched through the metal, denting it violently. They descended fast, too fast. Boots thundered down concrete steps, echoes stacking over each other until the sound became overwhelming. "They're right behind us," someone shouted. Jack's lungs burned. His injured arm screamed as he hauled the wounded operative down another flight. At the bottom, Jack kicked open the exit door and burst into another corridor, darker, narrower, bathed in emergency red lighting. This one twisted. Bad visibility, bad angles. Jack's pulse hammered. He checked his team quickly. 3 left. 3. The realization hit him like a blow to the chest. They hadn't even reached the target room. Gunfire erupted behind them again, closer now. Voices shouted, calm, efficient, controlled. Hunters. Jack scanned the corridor, mind racing. Too many angles, too many ways to die. He stopped abruptly. The team nearly collided with him. "Split up," Jack said. The words tasted wrong, but he forced them out anyway. "Draw them off." One of the operatives stared at him. "Sir." "Now," Jack snapped. They hesitated. Fear flickered openly now. Jack met their eyes, forcing certainty into his voice. "This is the only way?" One by one, they nodded. They scattered. Footsteps faded into different branches of the corridor, swallowed by shadows and distance. Jack was alone. The facility felt alive now, hostile, watchful. The hum of systems overhead seemed louder, accusatory. Jack ran. He took the first turn hard, boots skidding. Another corridor, locked door. Dead end. No. He spun and ran the other way, heart slamming against his ribs. His breathing was ragged now, control slipping. Footsteps echoed behind him. Close. Jack burst through another door and slammed it shut behind him, fumbling for the handle, locked. The realization hit like ice water. "This isn't happening," he muttered. The door rattled as something slammed into it from the other side. Jack spun, eyes wild, scanning for an exit. A service door at the far end. Jack ran. The door burst open under his shoulder, pain exploding through his body as he stumbled out into rain and darkness. The alley was narrow, soaked, alive with distant city noise. Jack staggered forward, then collapsed against the brick wall, chest heaving. His hands shook violently now, as adrenaline tore through him with nowhere to go. He pressed his forehead to the cold wall and forced himself to breathe. In, out. In. His phone vibrated. Jack froze. Slowly he pulled it out. The screen glowed harsh in the darkness. "It's over. You're burned." The words didn't register at first. He read them again and again. "No," Jack whispered. Burned meant erased. Burned meant cut loose. Burned meant the mission had never existed. And neither had his team. The corridor, the ambush, the timing. Jack slid down the wall, laughter bubbling up from somewhere broken inside him. "They set us up," he said softly. "They set us up." Rage followed disbelief, hot and violent, threatening to tear him apart. Jack slammed his fist into the brick wall and screamed, raw, wordless, full of everything he couldn't say. Rain washed over him, mixing with blood on his hands. When the sound finally tore itself out of his throat, Jack stood. His breathing steadied. Something inside him hardened. He looked down the alley once more, then stepped out into the city. A ghost now. And someone, somewhere, had decided he was disposable. That decision was going to cost them everything. Jack moved without direction at first. Rain soaked through his clothes as he emerged from the alley and merged with the outer edge of the city. Traffic hissed past on wet pavement. Neon signage bled color into puddles. People hurried by under umbrellas, absorbed in their own lives, unaware that a man had just been erased a few blocks away. Jack kept his head down. Every sound felt amplified now. The slap of his boots against concrete, the distant siren winding somewhere far off, the rasp of his own breathing. His body was still in fight mode, adrenaline surging with nowhere to spend itself. He forced his pace slower. Normal. Look normal. His shoulder burned where he'd smashed through the service door. The pain bloomed deeper with each step, spreading down his arm in dull, insistent waves. He flexed his fingers experimentally. They responded, sluggish but obedient. Good. He reached a narrow side street and ducked between two parked delivery trucks, crouching low. He leaned against cold metal and closed his eyes, counting breaths until the shaking in his hands subsided. This was the aftermath. This was the part no one ever trained you for. Jack replayed the breach in fragments. Gunfire strobing the hallway, Mason's blood on his gloves, the way the enemy had moved with anticipation rather than reaction. They'd known. The realization settled heavier now, unopposed by adrenaline. Every decision, every movement on the other side of that hallway had been too clean, too prepared. Not a counterattack, an execution. Jack pressed his forehead against the truck's bumper and let out a slow breath. They walked us into it. His phone buzzed again. Jack flinched despite himself. He pulled it out, thumb hovering over the screen like it might bite him. Nothing new, just the same message, sitting there like a gravestone. It's over. You're burned. Jack stared at it until the letters blurred. Burned meant more than being cut loose. It meant his name would be scrubbed from active systems, his credentials revoked, his access wiped. Any asset tied to him would be flagged. Anyone who reached out to him would be compromised. Burned meant he was radioactive. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and pushed himself upright. Think. Survival now meant discipline. Jack ran through a checklist in his head, grounding himself in procedure. Weapon status, rifle gone. Pistol still secure. Ammunition, 1 full magazine, 1 partial. Injuries, shoulder trauma, no break. Abrasions, bruising, no arterial bleeding. Visibility, low. Immediate pursuit, unlikely. Facility would lock down before expanding outward. They wouldn't chase him, not yet. They didn't need to. Jack stepped back into the street and walked. The city felt different now, larger, colder, indifferent. Every reflective surface made him tense. Every passing stranger registered as a potential threat until proven otherwise. He kept moving, putting distance between himself and the facility. At a crosswalk, he paused among a cluster of pedestrians. A man in a business coat stood beside him, scrolling through his phone. A woman held a child's hand, murmuring reassurances about the rain. Jack felt an unexpected surge of anger. They got to exist. He swallowed it down. Focus. When the light changed, Jack crossed and ducked into a narrow stairwell leading down into an underground parking structure. The air grew cooler, quieter. The smell of oil and damp concrete wrapped around him like a blanket. He found a dark corner behind a support column and sank down, back against the wall. Only then did he allow himself to look at his hands. They were smeared with blood, some his, some not. It had dried tacky against his skin, darkening in the low light. Jack scrubbed at them with rainwater from his sleeve until the skin burned. Faces surfaced unbidden. Mason, the man screaming about his leg, the one who'd gone down in the hallway, name lost to chaos. Jack pressed his fists into his eyes and breathed through the pressure building behind them. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he whispered. No answer came. The silence felt deliberate. Minutes passed. Eventually, the city noises filtered back in. The distant rumble of engines, the echo of footsteps above. Life continued, uncaring. Jack stood. He rolled his shoulders carefully, wincing as pain flared, then settled into something manageable. He checked his pistol again, confirming what he already knew. Still there. Still real. At least one thing hadn't been taken from him. Jack pulled his hood up and exited the parking structure through a side ramp, emerging several blocks away from where he'd entered. The rain had eased to a fine mist. As he walked, something inside him began to reorganize. The initial shock faded, replaced by something colder and more precise. Anger without direction was useless. Grief without purpose was paralyzing. But betrayal could be mapped. He replayed the mission again, slower this time. Not as a memory, but as data. Who had approved it? Who had set the parameters? Who had signed off on insertion timing? The answers weren't clear yet, but they existed. Someone had authored this. Someone had decided that Jack Harrison and the men with him were acceptable losses. Jack stopped under a flickering streetlight and looked up at the rain-darkened sky. His voice came out low, steady. "All right," he said. "You want me gone?" He turned away and disappeared into the maze of streets. They should have made sure.